The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I know I say it every Sunday, but we've got one hell of a week coming up in front of us. And what a week it's been that's just gone past. I was there on Thursday night at the European Summit, where the Prime Minister spent 90 minutes talking to the other European leaders, all of whom, at the end of it, were hugely unimpressed. She gave a press conference. She did not appear to be in control of events at all. In fact, if anything, it was the EU dictating to us dates, timelines and things that we should or should not do. And it was a pretty abject performance. I felt that it was not just a national humiliation, but indeed an international humiliation. The day, of course, before that, she gave her address to the nation, where she strode up to the microphone inside Number 10, a speech that basically said, I'm on your side. It's the MPs that are making all the difficulty for this, which, of course, made the chances of her getting her European treaty through on a third attempt even lower, and I don't think impressed anybody. Right at the moment, I think we've got a Prime Minister who has been in massive trouble for some time. Listeners to this show will know, ever since the Florence speech, when she announced she wanted a close and special partnership with the European Union, she wanted to opt back into bits of the European Union, I have been very opposed to her being the Prime Minister. I've said again and again, I think she's the worst Prime Minister we've had in my lifetime, and without doubt the most duplicitous too, over and over, saying one thing and doing another. And I know that throughout this, a lot of you have disagreed with me. A lot of you have felt, no, she's doing her best, and really it's all these horrible men around her making her life so difficult, and there's been a degree of sympathy, I think, at times for the Prime Minister. I rather think over the course of the last few days that sympathy has now gone, and it would appear, particularly within the Cabinet. Most newspapers this morning leading with the story that there's a Cabinet coup underway to get rid of the Prime Minister, and some quotes, obviously anonymous quotes, that appeared in today's Sunday Times. Cabinet Minister 1, her judgment has started to go haywire. You can't be a member of the Cabinet who just puts your head in the sand. Cabinet Minister number 2, people need to feel that the second phase of the negotiations will be run very differently, and that means different leadership. Cabinet Minister number 3, there are inherently volatile conditions, but I think they'll settle if there is a change in Prime Minister. Cabinet Minister number 4, the end is nigh. She won't be Prime Minister in 10 days' time. And the 5th one said, a growing number will vote for the deal if the Prime Minister agrees to go. David is someone who would command credibility and trust, and constitutionally he is the deputy. Now that's David Liddington. I have to say, if she was to go, I can't imagine anybody worse to take over, but we'll come to that in a moment. So, does it make sense, given that we've got this new deadline of the 12th of April, unless, of course, her new treaty was to pass in the House of Commons this week? Forget it. There's not a cat's chance in hell of that happening. It will not happen. So we've got an ultimatum given us by the European Union of the 12th of April. We have to come back by that date to decide what we're doing next. The reason for that date, of course, is that's the date, that's the last possible date when candidates have to be lodged to fight the European elections. We can't go beyond that date. Otherwise, constitutionally, the whole of the EU would be in the most awful mess. Is she the right person, given her shattered credibility, to move us on to the next stage? There is just one other option, which I will discuss at the 11 o'clock hour, and that is that she holds firm and takes us out with no deal, something very few people are talking about. But does it make sense to ditch this Prime Minister now and to get an interim Prime Minister? There does appear to be support for David Liddington, Remainer. There does appear to be some support growing for Michael Gove, who was a Leaver but now appears to be happy to compromise and go for a customs union, single market, almost Norway-type deal. And as this week goes on, Parliament day by day is likely to discuss all of the different options. It'll discuss and vote on a second referendum. It'll discuss and vote on just cancelling Article 50 completely. It'll discuss and vote on no deal, and it will discuss and vote, particularly interestingly, on a customs union. And it could be that Parliament decides it wants a customs union. If that's the case, then there's no way those negotiations can take place until the 12th of April. That would mean a lengthy extension of a year or two. So whichever way you cut this right now, it is most likely we're going to finish up with a very long extension. It is most likely that Brexit will not happen this Friday, despite us being told hundreds of times by cabinet ministers that it would. And that strikes me as being a total failure of Mrs May's leadership. And I would argue that if we're not leaving this Friday, I think Mrs May must go now. But my fear is she gets replaced by somebody else that doesn't really want to deliver Brexit. What do you think? Should she go now? And if you think, yep, she's been an absolute disaster, anybody would be better, call me on 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think, however bad she is, she needs to get us through this next phase before she goes. Please text to 84850. And who would you like to see replace her as an interim leader if, as all these cabinet ministers are saying, and it's rumoured 11 cabinet ministers want to get rid of her, who should replace her? Tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course Facebook, as you can comment too. Tristan is our first caller on this subject, a new caller from the Isle of Man. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. I've spoken a couple of times before. I think Mrs May is an absolute disaster. She's dreadful. But getting rid of her this week would be deeply destabilising. It really, really would. And I can't see any strong Brexiteer being popped into the slot to manage the situation. So I think she should stay until the end of this week at least, because, and here's my logic, what the Prime Minister is basically doing is running the Article 50 process, and that's what any Prime Minister would have been boxed in to do. Now, as I read it, if we don't get the withdrawal deal, we leave on the 29th. But we've got this extension, and the extension is not law in Britain until they pass that statutory instrument. But there's an article in The Spectator which says that, in fact, EU law, the fact that the EU Council made the decision and May's agreed it, that satisfied it legally. So, well,
this is the argument. This is the argument that EU law is superior to UK law, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if they vote down that statutory instrument, and I gather that I think a number of Tories voted against an extension last week, am I correct?
Yep.
If that was voted down, we've got the perfect conflict in that British Parliament would be saying we're out 29th, and the European Union will be saying, no, you've extended. What happens?
Oh, I think in that situation we would, UK law would triumph in that situation, because we're leaving, so therefore we'd be saying, goodbye, we don't want your laws anymore.
I totally agree, but there's going to be a big argument about it if that happens, and the only vote that needs to take place this week, forget the withdrawal deal, that's dead, forget indicative votes, waste of time, round and round and round, forget that. They need to have a vote on that statutory instrument, and the Tories need to get behind the vote to leave and reject it.
Well, Tristan, at 11 o'clock, I'm going to be joined by Martin Howe QC, a constitutional expert, and we're going to go through the details of that statutory instrument and what's to happen. So you think, just to sort of sum up, you think she should stay as leader at least until Friday?
Otherwise you're going to get some awful soft Remainer in, and it could turn to an absolute can of worms if it isn't already.
Difficult to see how the crisis could get worse, but you never know. Thank you very much indeed for your call. David says, why can't Theresa May just call an election? We can't call an election now. We've been given a deadline by our European masters. We've got to make a decision. Are we leaving or are we not leaving? I mean, that basically is where we are. And if we're not leaving, we head into a long extension and presumably head towards a new negotiation. And, of course, there are European elections to fight as well. Ginny says, we all gave Mrs May the benefit of the doubt. Boy, did she let us down. Ginny, I have to tell you, when she gave the Lancaster House speech, I did, from this very seat in this studio, praise her to the rafters. I believed in her. Not for long, but I did believe in her. And I now wonder whether she even knows in her own mind what she wants to do, or whether she's just being driven, blown around by the wind and badly advised by a civil service who never wanted us to leave. May's deal was an instruction from the EU. It's not a deal. We should have an election, says Tony. Again, Tony, no point calling an election now. We have to sort something out. Are we leaving or aren't we? And if we're not leaving, then there are elections to fight, Tony. Not general elections, there are European elections to fight on May the 23rd. Rupert is calling from Marbella in Spain. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
Despairing ever so slightly, Rupert, and you?
Well, we've been sparing every week or two for years now with this. It's a bit like a scratch record with May. Everyone's been saying, is she going to leave? How many times have we thought May's going to leave or be voted out, only for her to cling on?
Yep.
So for us to say, I think it's quite fanciful that she's going to go. I mean, and if she does go, her cabinet are all Remainers. So we're going to end up with someone who potentially is even worse. But I don't think there's any desire from the government really to leave. Or if we do leave, it's on her so-called deal. It's the EU's deal. So
it is. They wrote it, yeah.
Yeah, so I can't see that happening, Nigel. I don't think I don't think there's a real desire for us to leave unless it's on her deal. So I think we're just going to end up getting some money. They just want to fudge everything. We're going to end up with a long extension, I think. And my worry is, Nigel, a lot of people I'm speaking to in the financial market are saying that they believe that we are now approaching the cycle towards a recession. If they manage to get a long extension and we then get because a lot of people are talking to me about a global slowdown, if that then happens and we do end up with another credit crisis, they could fudge the whole thing altogether. Possible,
Rupert, although if we do have a downturn, I suspect it won't be anything like as bad as that already being experienced in France and Germany and Italy. Germany's industrial production figures out last Friday, down again month on month. Real problems over there.
And can I just say one thing that never gets mentioned, which when I saw all these people marching yesterday, I've never heard from the Remain side. They talk, we've had all the fear about the 500,000 jobs going when in fact it was the other way. I live in Southern Europe. I do business in Southern Europe. There's a whole lost generation here of people in Spain who can't get jobs.
Spain and Greece and Portugal. Yeah,
and these young people don't get mentioned. And my friends are qualified lawyers, qualified doctors. They can't get jobs.
I know. Rupert,
no one thinks of them.
I'm going to talk in a minute about the march in London with a foreign flag being paraded through the streets of London. Was it, in fact, a nationalist march? I'll come to that in a moment. But for now, you're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:16.
This is LBC.
Imagine the sunlight dancing on the waves as you cool off in the refreshing blue sea. Dive into summer and book your adventure now from only $49.99 with EasyJet. Dream. One way per person, 2 flying. Limited availability. See easyjet.com.
It's Super Weekend at Lidl with up to 50% off selected products. Get a bottle of Argentinian Malbec Mendoza just $4.29. British cold-pressed rapeseed oil only 99p. And deluxe RSPCA honey streaky bacon also 99p. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI and Scotland.
Did you remember to put the bins out? And did you check that you locked the door? Did you remember to switch off that heater? Did you blow out that candle? Did you check that you turned the hob off? And the oven? It only takes one accident to start a fire. Are you sure your smoke alarms are working? Fire kills. Test yours now.
With Brexit on the horizon, when it comes to searching for office space, flexibility to upsize or downsize at short notice is more important than ever. That's why startups, SMEs and large corporations are embracing flexible workspace instead of the constraints of traditional leases. OfficeFreedom.com have helped more than 30,000 businesses find their perfect space. For large or small office requirements anywhere in London, the UK or worldwide, use our free and impartial service. Visit OfficeFreedom.com.
It's time. Time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. With stunning HD video, crisp audio, and instant wireless sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device, But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
Go prepare! Their unbiased information could save billions across the nation. Proudly independent, free and fair!
With our offers of the week, you get our solid hardwood quality for less. A lot less. But they're just until Sunday at Oak Furnitureland. There's a store near you.
There's a new way to report non-emergency incidents or crimes to the Met Police. So if you've seen or been in a... or you've been the victim of a... maybe your... has been stolen, you can report it online at met.police.uk. It's quick, it's more convenient, and it's handled by the same team who answer our calls. Incident or crime? Tell us online. Metropolitan Police Service.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
11 cabinet ministers, it's rumoured, want to get rid of the Prime Minister and replace her with an interim. Is that the right course of action? Should May stay? Should May go? If you think she should stay, please call me on 0345 6060 973. Before I get to that, a big Remainer march in London yesterday. Not the first one we've seen. The last one I remember being told, and I was here on the Sunday morning, there were 700,000 people there, and they kept sticking to that line. In the end, it turned out the real figure was 250,000. But sort of the new Labour spin machine is behind all of this, and they just come up with a figure and they stick to it. We don't know how many marched yesterday. Some say 1 million. I have no idea. Whatever, a lot of people did march in London yesterday. And many of them were carrying the European Union flag. And I think people miss this. They are the nationalists. If you support the EU and you carry that flag, you are supporting something that says itself it wants to become an empire. It wants to expand. It wants its own army, navy, air force. It wants all its members to join its currency, and it wants to have its own finance minister that can go over and above chancellors of the exchequer of each individual country. I mean, that's fine if you're for a United States of Europe, if you're for a system where the unelected commission have the sole right to propose legislation or its repeal. If that's what you want, that's fine. But I kind of think a lot of people on that march yesterday probably don't believe that and don't think that. But for those that do, let's in future call them EU nationalists, because that is what they are. Not, of course, that march will make any difference, because there is quite a shift of opinion going on in this country, and I'll go through some polling figures later. But basically, Brexit and leaving on WTO terms has not been more popular than it is today for at least a decade. Back to Mrs May. Now, Callum says to me from Plymouth, better the devil you know, Nigel. As bad as she is, what may come next is scary. I think I speak for both sides when I say the public are exhausted with this. They want stability. Someone, anyone, just get on with it. Well, Callum, that's fine, but I don't see that Mrs May is going to get on with it. Alan from Devon as well takes a stronger line. He says the entire cabinet needs replacing. I think some people think the whole of Parliament needs replacing. And Leslie says May shouldn't go. I think the Remain cabinet have a hidden agenda and are trying to unseat her. They're the ones really trying to thwart Brexit. So Leslie taking the view. And Leslie, in many ways, you're right, because there is still a big majority in this cabinet of Remainers, and they haven't changed their minds. Should she stay? Should she go? I have to say, I think she's got one last chance with me. One last chance. If she keeps the legislation in place, and that'll mean Philip Hammond resigning, well, great. You know, I mean, he's been saying on the television this morning that he thinks a second referendum's a credible option. If she keeps the legislation in place, we would still leave at 11 p.m. this coming Friday. That's my one last chance for her. But overall, I have to say the whole thing has been a catastrophic failure of leadership. Darcy is a new caller from Southport. Good morning, Darcy.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning. So, should she stay? Should she go?
She should go. I'm embarrassed.
Yes, I know what you mean. I think we have been humiliated on the world stage, Darcy.
Definitely. Definitely. It's just embarrassing to watch. And she should never have been put in that. She should never have been installed as Prime Minister.
Well, we had that chaotic period, didn't we, after the referendum? Andrea Leadsom popped up for a bit, took 2 days of media abuse and ran away. Boris was going to run, but Gove stabbed him in the back. And she came through the middle without a contest, but with the very strong backing, Darcy, of the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail came out for her. And that seemed of itself to convince a lot of Conservatives that she was the right person. But
definitely.
But
Definitely.
without Darcy wishing to backtrade, we are where we are now. Should she go now or see the next couple of weeks through?
No, she should just go now. I mean, I was a Conservative member for 3 years. This time, I haven't renewed the membership because I don't see the point in renewing this membership. She's making like an actual. It's ridiculous. I can't believe how this was her plan all along, to prolong it and prolong it. I remember campaigning for Brexit, for the vote leave, and I remember that night when we voted to leave, and then 2 years later we still haven't gone. There was no question of, should we go with a deal? It was just, should we leave? And now everybody's changing everything and saying, we didn't know what we voted for.
Has she,
Darcy?
Has she betrayed the Brexit vote, Darcy?
Yes, completely. I know a lot of. I'm only 19, and lots of my friends were all, pro-Remain, and now even they're like, at the end of the day, we voted for it, so let's do it. And then you've got Mr. Burko, the Speaker, and he seems to be running the show. It's embarrassing.
Well, he certainly is, and he cites precedent going back to 1604 when it suits him, and at other times changes, breaks precedent. It's bizarre. Darcy thinks she should go. Darcy, very quickly, who do you think of the current cabinet should replace her as an interim leader?
To be honest, none of them.
Oh, right.
That's it. I would see Boris. I think Boris should be the next leader.
Well, Boris and Jacob Rees-Mogg and one or two others are going to Chequers this afternoon for tea. Wouldn't that be interesting to be a fly on the wall? Darcy, thank you for your call. On Twitter, I get Theresa May should make sure Britain exits the EU on the 29th of March, then steps down, and a huge sculpture of her will be needed outside Parliament. Or, James, as I've said before, the fourth plinth in Trafalgar Square. At the moment, nobody in the country seems to like her. Leavers and Remainers think she's awful. If she takes us out on a WTO deal, half the country plus will absolutely love her. Matthew is calling from Heathrow, a regular caller to this show. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Nigel. As you know, I'm a Remainer, but accepted we should leave. And, I think what Theresa May should do now is actually say if the MPs pass her deal, that she will then stand down and allow Brexiteer to go to do the trade deals. And I think it's got to be like Jacob Rees-Mogg and possibly Boris Johnson as the deputy, basically. So we could actually get Jacob Rees-Mogg, as you're not going to be an MEP anymore, he could actually have you as a consultant, as he's quite chummy with you, I think.
Well, he's civil to me, which Mrs. May has never been. That's certainly true. But Matthew, do you know, I was thinking this morning, just looking at the mess we're in, and the current crisis, and I, as I say, directly as a result of a complete failure of leadership. And I wondered this morning, given how bad things are, maybe, just maybe, what MPs should do is to accept her treaty. She calls it a deal. It's not. It's a treaty. And then I thought, Matthew, it is so bad in terms of what it commits us to and binds us into that I believe that to be totally and utterly impossible. This May treaty is not going to pass the House, Matthew. It just isn't.
Well, yeah, I've got my doubts, but then what's going to happen is there's no alternative. We're going to end up having to revoke the Article 50 because the rest of the MPs are not going to agree on a deal, and that's why it's not going to work. And
well, Matthew, come on. 498 MPs voted for Article 50, which said we're leaving on March the 29th with or without a withdrawal agreement.
Yeah, but they've already voted against that already. But
it is in law,
even though it's not legally binding.
Right. So you think get the deal through, put a Brexiteer in charge to take on the next phase?
Yeah, I think that is the only way. Otherwise, I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to have to stay in the EU. You're going to have to be elected again. But I think then we've got actually another chance. This is my Remainer hat coming on. We've got another chance to actually get what people voted for. They'll give us more control of immigration while we're still in the EU. We could go for that emergency break. And also Theresa May's deal about we could do our own trade deals. We could still do that while we're in the EU if they agree. We could still
if they agree
as it arrives.
Matthew, if we sign this treaty, we're their captives. That's my view. Matthew, thank you. And Matthew, a Remainer, but looking for the best way to get Brexit. Craig's a new caller from Glasgow. Good morning, Craig.
Pleasure to talk to you, Nigel.
Good morning.
This is just a joke, isn't it?
Yes.
Brexit.
Yes, it really is.
It's never going to happen, mate. All they're going to do is keep inventing all these stupid stories about this, that and the other. Market said this and something said that, so we'll have to cancel Brexit. It's not going to happen. Everybody knows it's not going to happen.
Craig, can I ask you?
What are we going to do about it?
Can I ask you, who do you vote for normally?
Well, if I haven't a kid now, I always wanted Scottish independence, right?
Yep.
Voted SNP my whole life. Now, if you were to have a referendum now, I would probably vote against Scottish independence, because I wanted Scottish independence and Brexit.
And with the yeah, of course, the SNP want to stay part of the European Union, don't they?
Yeah, and there's one voted for Brexit, and we've been totally ignored. We've been trampled upon.
Yeah.
We've been told we don't exist, basically.
Yeah. Well, Craig, I've got some good news for you to brighten up your Sunday morning. Brexit is going to happen. Whether it happens this Friday or not, public opinion is moving more and more in a Brexit direction.
What about these European elections, Nigel?
Well, Craig, if we have to fight them, the very act of fighting them will show.
I think they're going to do is out of them.
Well, I tell you what, if we have to fight them, Craig, I will fight them. Be in no doubt. Thank you for your call. And Craig feeling a bit lonely up there in Scotland as a Brexiteer. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 10:30 and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
The Chancellor says MPs reported to be trying to oust the Prime Minister are being self-indulgent. It's understood a group of senior ministers are planning a coup to install a caretaker leader. One person has been killed and 5 others have been injured in separate stabbings in London overnight. The man who died was found in Pinner at around 6 o'clock this morning. The RAF is to deliver up to 20 tonnes of UK aid to help those caught up in the aftermath of Cyclone Idai in southern Africa. An estimated 1.8 million people have been displaced in Mozambique alone. And the weather, dry with sunny spells in central and southern areas, showers and strong winds across Scotland, that rain spreading to Northern Ireland and Northern England later. A high of 13 Celsius.
This is LBC.
I'm Peter Jones. I've worked with many businesses. They're all different. So why be shoehorned into accounting software that treats all businesses the same? Sage Business Cloud is different. It fits your business's ever-changing needs, like preparing for making tax digital. With Sage, you're good to go. Business is about making wise choices. It's about being Sage.
Be ready for making tax digital. Sign up for a free MTD consultation at sage.com/MTD.
Hello, hi. I bought this gym membership as I wanted to get fit, but I just read that dad bods are in right now, so I think I might just stick with what I've got. So, could I get my money, please?
Money for a gym membership you don't use? Not so smarty. Money off your next phone bill for mobile data you don't use? Smarty. Plans starting from £6.25 per month for 1 gig of data and unlimited calls and texts. Call exclusions apply. Join today at smarty.co.uk. Simple, honest, mobile.
ISAs. They're all pretty. But what if there was one that was more...
That's what you get from Vitality. It's an ISA, but with more oomph. Invest in Vitality funds, and on top of any returns, we'll give you bigger and bigger boosts every 5 years. Up to 15% over 25 years. Apply for a new ISA by April the 5th, and we'll also give you full cashback on your product charge for the first year. Just search Vitality Invest ISA. Vitality. Positively different. Capital at risk. Minimum investment and T's and C's apply.
I'm from a small town in Lancashire, and growing up, I just always wanted to move away. But then my geography teacher took us rambling. So I'm there, walking through nature, and he begins explaining our home to us, why it's so special. He showed me the trails my grandfather took, and also his grandfather before him. That teacher taught geography, but really, he was teaching me who I was.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. Use a subject you love to inspire a generation. Search Get Into Teaching.
Give your Ford a spring in its step with a Ford Motorcraft service for just £149 RRP. Now easier to book than ever with our new online service booking system. And save £10 on any Ford service when you quote Ford 10. Book now at ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer.
Recommended promotional price. Not available with other Ford promotions. Terms and conditions apply.
With Brexit on the horizon, when it comes to searching for office space, flexibility to upsize or downsize at short notice is more important than ever. That's why startups, SMEs and large corporations are embracing flexible workspace instead of the constraints of traditional leases. OfficeFreedom.com have helped more than 30,000 businesses find their perfect space. For large or small office requirements anywhere in London, the UK or worldwide, use our free and impartial service. Visit OfficeFreedom.com.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Should Mrs May stay? Should Mrs May go? 11 cabinet ministers rumoured to be planning a coup to get rid of her. I have to say, unless she's prepared to do the right thing this week, I think she should go as quickly as possible. Now, a story that we've been following up here on the Sunday show, and that the rest of the media seem to be ignoring completely, are the events that take place in Paris every single Saturday. And we had this week the French Prime Minister saying no yellow jackets in Paris this weekend, and then I was told 3,000 soldiers would be on the streets and perhaps they'd fire live rounds. So let's find out what happened in Paris yesterday by crossing to Peter Allen, LBC's correspondent. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Nigel.
So yeah, I was hearing these blood-curdling stories that soldiers with instructions to shoot and all the rest of it. What actually took place?
Well, there were plenty of soldiers on the street, as you say, Nigel, yesterday in Paris. Also, about 5,000 police, believe it or not.
Wow.
A similar number of yellow vests turned up in Paris, including in some areas they weren't meant to be. But the authorities kept them under control. There were 70 arrests in all. There was some unpleasant disturbances in the north of the city. That's away from the Champs-Élysées, all the smart areas that we normally see and read about in the British press. So there was trouble, but a massive police presence kept it down compared to previous weeks.
So is the tactic now that they can go and wreck poor areas, not rich ones?
Unfortunately, that's probably a pretty fair analysis,
yes.
Actually. Everything was done to protect the rich areas, and the poor quartiers were largely where all the trouble was yesterday.
And what was happening in other French cities, Peter? Was this happening elsewhere, in Marseille, etc.?
It absolutely was. It was happening in Nice, in Toulouse, in Marseille. Lots of trouble in those cities as well. It's a nationwide protest against Macron's government, which looks set to continue. OK,
Peter Allen, thank you very much indeed. Well, there you are. They keep on going. And luckily, live rounds weren't used. But isn't it interesting that they now just put them in the north of Paris where it's poor and basically no one cares anymore and it doesn't make the news? But it's still happening and France is becoming increasingly lawless. Now, Steve on Facebook poses an interesting thought. He says, if it's true what you just said, Nigel, I would hope that Theresa May would be pulling Boris and Jacob and to get the ERG to become part of the cabinet. Well, Steve, that meeting that's taking place at Chequers this afternoon, we do absolutely believe to be true. And they are going, I think, to be urging the Prime Minister and saying, look, actually, you need to go for a no-deal Brexit. And let me just share some polling with you, because things are really changing out there. Yes, I know there were a huge number of people on the streets of London yesterday that want to reverse the referendum. I do understand that. However, Comres polling in the Daily Express has found some really fascinating things. The first is public perception of politicians. 78% of the public say Parliament has emerged badly from Brexit, with 3% who think it's emerged well, a net score of -75. I've never seen anything like that, frankly. It's quite extraordinary. But here's what matters. People were given options. Did you want to remain in the EU? did you want to leave the EU? And they were given different options of how they could remain or how they could leave. And when you add them up, 35% want to remain, 50% want to leave. And that is the biggest gap, the biggest lead for leave in 10 years. And on the individual options, 41% of all those polled think we should just leave this Friday. But perhaps the more telling figure is 48% of all adults say we just want Brexit and we couldn't give a damn how you do it. Just please get on with it, get it delivered. So there is quite a big shift going on in this country towards just leaving because people have had enough of the agony. And I think if we do get an extension for a year or two, if we do have to fight European elections, if Parliament says it wants us to move to a single market, customs union, Norway-style model, those figures will only get better. I've never lived through a period when the gap between what Parliament wants and thinks and what the country wants and thinks has ever been bigger. Back to Mrs May. Should she stay? Should she go? Ivan is a new caller from Hadley in Essex. Good morning, Ivan.
Good morning to you, Nigel.
So, should she go?
Oh, yes, without doubt. And my reasons are as follows. We were thwarted at every turn by the European community in negotiations. Why on earth would we want her to lead us into the second stage with Ollie Robbins? I just beggars belief. I agree with you about duplicitous, about her being duplicitous. I just think it's a complete and utter shambles. The manifesto, that's the Conservative manifesto, says we're going to leave.
Yes.
But the deal that she proposes is half in and half out, Nigel.
No, Ivan, I agree with all of that. I think she has lost all credibility. I think she's made us an international laughingstock. I think she's done the whole Brexit process massive damage by saying one thing and doing another. Who would you like to see, Ivan, replace her as an interim?
Well, I'd like to see, I can't see why it can't be the cabinet en masse. I think you've got Remainers in there and you've got Leavers.
You've got a majority of Remainers, Ivan.
Yes, absolutely right. And I think that's the problem, because I think what they've tried to do is they've tried to arrange their deal, which is not what the people voted for. I just think that I'm a young Conservative, or used to be a young Conservative, but never again. And I think when the local council elections, I think the Conservatives will be slaughtered.
Ivan, tell me something. You've been part of the party. I was talking to quite a senior Conservative MEP the other day, someone that's been in the party nearly half a century, who thinks that if Brexit's not delivered and we get an extension, that it's virtually the end of the Conservative Party.
Oh, I think that's absolutely right. And can I just say this, Nigel? If you'd been around when I was younger, I'd have definitely voted for you, because you talk sense. You say the same thing, and you mean what you say, as opposed to some others that come in front of us all the time that say one thing and do another. I think you're a credit to your future party, Nigel.
Well, Ivan, that's kind of you, and people can disagree with me very, very strongly, but I haven't changed the song too much over the last 25 years.
No, your scriptwriter has been the same, and you deliver it with aplomb.
That's
very, very good morning to you, Nigel.
Thank you very much, Ivan. Thank you. God, I'll buy you a pint for saying that. Nigel, as a Brexiteer I get on Twitter, I am now genuinely fearful that Brexit will never happen. The full power of the parliamentary machine seems to be against my vote. I am concerned. Dave, I think a lot of people are concerned. I was in a very Brexit part of the country yesterday. I was in Mansfield, and we marched down to Nottingham. I'm getting rather used to these long-distance walks. I'm quite enjoying them, actually. It was rather delightful, actually, because I finished up in Anna Soubry's constituency, which was fun. But yes, I was meeting people out on the street yesterday, beginning to worry whether it will ever happen. And I think it will. I think those opinion polls show you what the direction of travel is. In the end, Brexit's going to get there, but it could be very painful, and there could be more battles until we achieve it. Is it time for the PM to go? Lisa is calling from Leicestershire. Good morning, Lisa.
Oh, hi, Nigel. We are calling you here from the march.
I met you yesterday on the march, didn't I?
Yes, yeah. And firstly, I'd like to say we're all hugely relieved to be going a little bit slower today.
I was leading the March for Brexit yesterday, and I think, Lisa, I think I'm a little bit fitter than many of the media pundits would like to suggest.
Definitely, you surprised us all.
Right.
So we're all here on the march. It's a beautiful day, and I think many of us, I can't necessarily speak for all, we're all in a long line walking along a gorgeous field and river, feel that she should not change the law and go out on Friday as promised.
OK, well, if she goes out on Friday as promised, then you and the March to Leave and me, when I join you in Parliament Square, we can have a huge party in Parliament Square because we'll have left. But if that's not the case, is it time that she was replaced by an interim Prime Minister?
Yes.
Who?
And it needs to be a Brexiteer.
Right.
Well, personally, I'd like to see Rees-Mogg in there, or Dominic Raab, but I don't know how easy that is if he's not a member of the cabinet.
I think the interim Prime Minister will necessarily come from the cabinet. I don't see any other way of this happening, and that probably, Lisa, means Michael Gove. But Michael Gove now is beginning to talk about a customs union type arrangement, single market type arrangement. I'm not sure you'd be very happy with that, would you?
No, not at all. So we need to just stick to Plan A. And she needs to not change the law, and we need to come out on the 29th.
All right. Do you think she'll do it?
Oh, I really hope so, but I'm not convinced. I'd love to know what's going on. I'd love to know what's going on at Chequers right now.
Yeah, well, I think it's afternoon tea, actually. And as I say, it would be great to be a fly on the wall. Lisa, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for the call. Thank you very much indeed.
Everyone say
Terrific. Thank you very much. Well, there you are. Some of the media thought I was going to walk myself all the way from Sunderland to London. If I had the time, I'd love to have done. I really, really would. As I say, I'm a lot fitter than many media pundits think. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here at LBC, and it's now 10:45.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Leader of the House, Andrea Leveson, here to take your calls. Your cabinet needs to remain focused, to quote you back. Is that actually part of the problem? Too much of the cabinet is on the remain side.
They would all tell you that they are completely committed to getting the Prime Minister's deal over the line.
Your calls to Health Secretary Matt Hancock. Does the Health Secretary think that a trans female patient should be on an all-female ward?
I think essentially this whole area needs looking at.
Surely someone who has a male appendage should not be on a female's ward.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero, get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Most productive way to travel? Richard Percy, CEO of SafeToNet, takes the train.
If I'm on a train in particular, I always book my seat in advance, which means I can actually relax and think about what it is that I'm trying to do. I actually find it the most rewarding time in terms of productivity.
Arrive ready for business with Great Western Railway, who offer free Wi-Fi on board most services. To find out more and for your chance to win a business bundle, including a laptop and smartwatch, visit lbc.co.uk.
Where are we?
The New Forest.
But I thought we only had the Mini Countryman booked for a test drive. We can't stay here.
We're not going to.
This isn't exactly what I meant.
Relax. With Mini's new 48-hour test drive, you can use the Countryman for exactly what it's built for. Exploring. Plus, it's an SUV, the largest Mini in the range, so you can pack loads more in.
Great. Where next?
Well, you know how you've always wanted to try kayaking?
The Mini Countryman 48-hour test drive. Visit mini.co.uk to book yours. Mini. Who's in? Test drive subject to status and availability. Terms and conditions apply. Participating Mini retailers only.
That's it. Enough is enough. I'm going to give you a right
paintwork ready for a revamp. Get to B&Q. We've a massive paint range at everyday low prices. Like Good Home's durable coloured matte emulsion 2.5 litre for just £16. So you can do it when you B&Q it.
Would you and your business benefit from a personal approach from your accountant? At Barnes Rofe, of course, our partners have the technical skills needed to offer you first-class audit, tax and accounting advice. But most importantly, we'll work closely with you to help your business grow long-term. Perhaps it's time to see what we can do for you. Arrange your free consultation at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
Set for Life is the new game from the National Lottery where you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. So now you can jump into June, make October a scream, and stick a rocket up November. Make every month amazing. Play new Set for Life Mondays and Thursdays. Amazing starts here. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
This June, Prostate Cancer UK is marching for men again. Join us at Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park in London on the 15th of June at our March for Men. Walk with thousands of people like you to help beat prostate cancer, the most common cancer in men. Bring your friends, family, and even your dog. Search March for Men online and sign up today with Prostate Cancer UK. Men, we are with you.
Block management. Two very simple words. But what do they actually mean? Well, there's budget approval for starters, then service charge invoices, health and safety paperwork, cleaning, gardening, maintenance, inspections, contracts, insurance, emergency call-outs, and a whole lot more besides.
So for complete block management solutions, just remember 3 simple letters: ABC. ABC Estates will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry. See abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
So Mrs May's job as Prime Minister was to get us out of the European Union. She wanted to do that via a withdrawal agreement. The European Union came up with a new treaty, and twice it's been defeated in the House of Commons. It is supposed to be going back to the Commons this week, and Bercow, we're told, would accept there'd been a change in that the date had moved from the 29th of March to the 12th of April. But another very good reason for MPs perhaps not to vote for this deal is an enormously powerful letter that appears in today's Sunday Telegraph, and it is signed by Rear Admirals, Major Generals, Lieutenant Generals, etc. I mean, people from absolutely top brass, ex-top brass of the British military. And they point out that the European Union now wants to build its own aircraft carrier. So things are moving in terms of European defence very quickly, and they say the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration signally fail to provide firewalls in national security areas which are no business of the EU at all. Another reason why I think this isn't going to happen, so maybe she should just resign, as what she spent 2 years negotiating simply isn't going to get through. I have to say, the one thing I'm certain of is she cannot lead the country into the next phase of negotiations. She's got no credibility in Brussels or indeed on the world stage at all. My real worry, is if she was to go this week, she'd be replaced by somebody who's perhaps even more of a Remainer than she is. Christoph is calling from Fulham. Good morning, Christoph.
Morning, Nigel. Morning. I think, we've spoken before.
We have,
I'm a committed Remainer, and I've become what you might call a sort of Breximania or remixiteer, in that I can see that, it's a disaster. We've hit a brick wall, and actually we just need to get out. We need to get out on a no deal, and unless we can threaten that, we are going to get nothing better from the European Union, who have treated Theresa May disgracefully.
Yes, they have, Christoph, and I think that's something that a lot of people in this country have picked up on. I don't think many people realised just how powerful and just how remote in terms of the electorate these figures like Tusk and Barnier and Juncker are. So that certainly made a difference to public opinion. But for you to have gone from being a strong Remainer to being a no-dealer, it's a hell of a transformation, Christoph.
That's absolutely true. I'm seeking medical advice at the moment. I think I've retained some level of sanity, but we are in such an incredibly weak position. I've been in European meetings in the last 2 weeks and meeting Belgians and French and Dutch, and they all say, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And they're as confused as we are, but they can see that Britain has been treated badly. They can see that it's a very difficult situation for us. We do have friends in Europe, though they're not friends at the top table in Brussels or Strasbourg or Luxembourg. And we have to make a clear statement. And the other thing is that Australia,
India, Canada are watching us. They're watching us like a hawk. We weren't nice to them in the early 1970s.
We weren't, were we? God.
We weren't. We kicked them in the shins. They're willing to give us a second chance, and it's time we took that second chance. And as I say, that's a hell of a transformation for me, but I'm pretty sure we need to do that.
What a fascinating phone call. Christoph, thank you. That really is and again, it's Christoph saying, look, whatever I voted, we need leadership. We've got to make a decision. We've got to send signals to the rest of the world as well. And I have to say, I do very much agree with that. Now, lots of thought about this meeting that's going on in Chequers. Lots of you speculating on this. Nigel, I think Boris and Jacob are attending Chequers to tell her to sack any cabinet members threatening to resign. Jacob will be given a position in the new cabinet, giving him a chance to be PM. Well, none of us know. But if the Prime Minister, if she's decided, and we'll debate this in the next hour, if she's decided that the only way she can save her reputation, the only way she can save Brexit, the only way she can stop the Conservative Party from being ripped asunder is to actually keep the legislation in place so that we leave at 11 p.m. this Friday, knowing that people like Philip Hammond, who this morning called no-deal Brexit a catastrophe, knowing they'll be opposed, maybe she's preparing a sort of night of the long knives to sack the Remainers and put Boris and Jacob in the cabinet. Oh, and then I woke up. But you never know. You don't know. She is in such an appalling situation that I actually think anything is possible. Should she stay? Should she go? Can she be brave enough to do this? Louise is calling from Shaftesbury. Good morning.
Morning, Nigel. Look, Nigel, I feel really sorry for Mrs May. Nobody wanted the most ambiguous contract in history. The referendum, I mean, let's just consider what a contract actually is. The country went to vote, a referendum to leave. Now, you and I both know in contract you've got express terms and you have implied terms. Uh-huh. And there are a lot of people that voted to leave thinking they weren't just leaving. They didn't think they were just packing their bags and leaving totally. They thought they were leaving with a chance of a better deal. They thought they were leaving the chance with a deal. No, there were a lot of people that voted to leave. And by the way, I'm not speaking for either side.
Sure.
All right. So, and because I actually think the argument's been argued from day one wrong. She should never have got up and said, I mean Brexit. Brexit's Brexit. Okay. Well, what does Brexit actually mean? And then nobody actually, from day one...
Well, Louise, I tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean being part of the single market. It doesn't mean being part of the customs union, full stop.
I agree with that. We voted to because we wanted to rule our own country again, but... she did. She wasn't lying when she said, I'm going to deliver the country Brexit, because she knew, and a lot of lawyers knew, that actually the referendum didn't actually say we were going to leave with nothing.
But Louise, but you can see that people who voted Brexit voted for us to leave the EU's institutions, not to remain tied to some of them, and that's what she's done. That's what
Nobody wanted her job anyway.
Well, that's not the point, is it? She was the anointed one. I do agree. The others showed a real lack of courage, and quite why Boris withdrew, I will never ever know. And I understand
Why didn't you go for it?
I'm not a member of the Conservative Party.
But why didn't you when you were a member? Why wouldn't you when you're leading your own party? Why didn't you fight for it?
Well, Louise, what I did do in the wake of the referendum. And when she'd become leader...
I'm not putting you down, by the way.
No, I offered my services and I said, if I can help with Brexit in any way at all, particularly going around Europe and encouraging businesses there to put pressure on governments and pressure on Juncker and Barnier, that we can have a grown-up trade deal and do it quickly, I would. They didn't want my help, Louise.
I just want to say, I do want to say, if she called... I'm worried that if there was an election, that would be the trump card the EU would want to extend Article 50. I do worry about that. The only way if the country wants to get rid of her, they're blaming her, and I think she's the wrong person to blame. I honestly do. Well, I think she's the only one who actually had any balls to stand up and take this position. The rest all knew this was the most career-damaging hot potato on the planet.
Louise, she's misled us. She's misled us. She
had people behind her probably saying, well, let's do this, and don't forget, she doesn't run it on her own. She's not steering that ship on her own. She's got a whole cabinet behind her. You can't blame her.
I do blame her.
The only one who actually said, OK, I'll do it.
I do blame her, Louise. I do blame her again and again for saying one thing and doing another. I blame her for a manifesto.
But the EU played a very tight steering ship all along. They made sure that we couldn't negotiate from the very beginning.
Yes, and she couldn't negotiate her way out of a paper bag, Louise. She's hopeless.
We did send in some very weak negotiators.
Well, she chose them, Louise.
That got sent over there. I mean, we sent over people that we knew were no good at negotiating.
I tell you what, Louise. I tell you what, Boris. Whatever you think of Boris, Boris would not have picked Ollie Robbins to. I had to be careful there. He'd have picked somebody who actually believed in it.
I've seen Boris when he's campaigning down in London. He actually really does reach out to the younger generations. He's absolutely fantastic. But nobody wanted that job because everybody knew that the Brexit, the referendum was ambiguous from day one.
All right.
Everybody knew that. Everybody knew it. Nobody wanted the most career-damaging job
Louise,
in history.
You've put up a passionate defence of Theresa May, and I'm going to keep this conversation going. I want to keep talking about Theresa May in this next hour because despite everything that's been said by everybody, the fact is that the legislation, the law of the land in this place right now is that we are leaving, we are, at 11 p.m. this Friday. And for us not to leave, doesn't matter a damn what Parliament do in these indicative votes, it's actually up to the Prime Minister. She would have to change the law in the next few days for us not to leave. Could she just surprise all of us by coming up with a no-deal Brexit, uniting the Conservative Party, taking us out, being a heroine to half the country? Could she do it? 0345 6060 973. Am I dreaming to think of it? Text to 84850. Any comments, please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC Facebook, as you can comment too. Could she just do it?
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, the Chancellor has accused senior Tories reportedly plotting to remove the Prime Minister of being self-indulgent. 11 cabinet ministers are understood to be ready to back a coup. The Environment Secretary, Michael Gove, and Theresa May's effective deputy, David Lidington, have been named as possible caretaker successors. Philip Hammond says he does not believe Mrs May has run out of road.
This is not about the Prime Minister or any other individual. This is about the future of our country. And changing Prime Minister wouldn't help us. Changing party in government wouldn't help us. We've got to address the question of what type of Brexit is acceptable to Parliament, what type of way forward Parliament can agree on.
It remains unclear whether the withdrawal agreement will return to the Commons for a third vote next week. Some MPs have reportedly indicated they would support the agreement if the Prime Minister promised to resign. A man has died following a stabbing in northwest London. He was found injured in Pinner early this morning after a night in which 5 people were hurt, one critically, in a series of separate attacks in the capital. On Friday, a teenager was stabbed to death in Isleworth. A cruise ship that got into difficulties off the coast of Norway is sailing into port after around half its passengers were rescued. Nearly 500 of those on board were airlifted one by one overnight. The Viking Sky sent a mayday call yesterday after losing engine power in a severe storm. Thailand has voted in its long-delayed general election, nearly 5 years after a military coup. The army chief, who led the takeover in 2014, is hoping to extend his hold on power through the ballot box. More than 50 million people are eligible to vote, with turnout expected to be as high as 80%. The Royal Air Force will lead commemorations today on the 75th anniversary of the Great Escape. In 1944, 76 prisoners of war attempted to leave a Luftwaffe-run Nazi camp through tunnels, but only 3 managed to escape to safety, and 50 of those recaptured were killed. The RAF will take part in a flypast and form a Guard of Honour alongside the Polish Air Force later. And the weather forecast. Dry with sunny spells in central and southern areas, showers and strong winds across Scotland, and rain spreading to Northern Ireland and Northern England later, a high of 13 Celsius. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Thomas Watts.
When unfettered by diverse irritations, hindrances and impediments, one's habitual customs are far less vexatious to effect than if they were not. Which is an unnecessarily complicated way of saying, life's a lot easier when we keep things simple. And at SEAT, we think car finance should be simple too. And because they want everything and we want nothing, we're offering 4 years 0% APR across our entire range. Why make life complicated? Because them, us. SEAT.
With Solutions Personal Contract Plan, 10% customer deposit required on Ateca, Arona, Tarraco and Alhambra. Order by 1st April 2019, 18s and over, subject to status. Excludes Cupra. Indemnities may be required. SEAT Finance, visit seat.co.uk.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, with all the talk about second referendums, extensions and all the rest of it, and a general feeling that we won't now be leaving on March the 29th, I do keep making this argument that actually the law of the land is that we are due to leave at 11 p.m. on March the 29th, because that is part of the legislation that went through Parliament. So let's find out, shall we? What would need to happen? What would Mrs May have to do to change that legislation? But more importantly, if she decides in the next 48 hours that basically the game's up, her reputation's shredded, her party are on the middle, perhaps of splitting horribly, that staring down the barrel of European elections would be even more disastrous, and that maybe she wants us actually to leave with no deal on Friday because that's the only way she can save herself, what would then have to happen, and could she be stopped? Joining me to talk through this is Martin Howe, QC. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning.
Am I right in telling LBC listeners that the law of the land says we're leaving at 11 p.m. this Friday?
Well, you are right, but they're subject to one point.
Yep.
In order to change the date in the 2018 Act from the 29th of March, it is necessary that a so-called statutory instrument is passed, and that needs to be passed by an affirmative resolution in each House of Parliament. That can be done this week, and indeed the government is intending to lay this before both houses. However, the government has done something very, very surprising indeed, because on Friday, Sir Tim Barrow, the UK permanent representative in Brussels, wrote a letter which appears to agree unconditionally to the extension to the 12th of April that was negotiated by Theresa May last week.
Yeah.
And that arguably has the effect that in international law, the United Kingdom is already committed to an extension before the House of Commons has actually voted on that extension to change the law. This is certainly contrary to all long-standing constitutional precedent and convention, and it runs a very dangerous risk, or if the House refuses to agree to the statutory instrument, then there will be a chaotic divergence between the United Kingdom's international obligations and the domestic law.
Gosh. Are the Foreign Office now running the country, Martin Howe?
Well, I'm quite amazed by this. It's quite astonishing that they've done this. It's certainly contrary to all precedent. Whenever the United Kingdom enters into international treaties or other international obligations which require changes to be made in domestic law, the practice is always that the government awaits the decision of Parliament on whether to make the necessary legal changes before committing the United Kingdom to those changes in the international plane. And they've done this, it seems to me, simply to try and intimidate Parliament and jump the gun. And, of course, a further thing to look at is whether this is actually legal for them to have done this.
If it's deemed not to be legal, and you say that the government intends to put the statutory instrument before Parliament this week, what if Mrs May was to realise today that the game's completely up, her own party is in tatters, her legacy, her historical legacy, is going to be zero? What if she decided that she wanted to stick with the legislation. And she's got this big meeting taking place this afternoon at Chequers. And it's really quite interesting in terms of who's turning up at it. Boris Johnson, Dominic Raab, Jacob Rees-Mogg, David Davis, Ian Duncan-Smith and Damien Green. What if she decided, Martin, actually, the only way I can save my own skin is to go for a no deal? Could she be stopped?
She probably couldn't, but I think, this is wishful thinking.
Yes.
I don't think there's the slightest chance of Theresa May doing that at all. She's said hundreds of times that no deal is better than a bad deal.
Yep.
And it's clear every single time she's said that, she has been completely insincere and never willing actually to carry through on it. So
yes.
I suspect this meeting is simply an attempt, yet another attempt, to persuade them to push her terrible deal through by threatening them all with something worse, like a long Article 50 extension or no Brexit.
Is it possible, and Martin, you know many of these people well, is it possible that the Jacob Rees-Moggs of this world look at the crisis we're in and decide, you know what, her deal's absolutely awful, but maybe better that than years of uncertainty? Is it possible that she can overturn, a loss of 149 votes last time round?
No, well, I can't see any prospect of her overturning enough of them. The problem is that her deal is actually creates years of uncertainty. It makes it certain that we will have at least 2 years of turmoil-filled negotiation for the future deal, and that will be done against a background where we've given away almost all our negotiating cards and where we're threatened with dropping into the backstop if we don't do the deal the EU wants. So I'm afraid her deal, I've said this before, but her deal is much, much worse than an Article 50 extension, because we will be subject to the European Union's laws with no vote under her deal. If we have an Article 50 extension, at least we will still have a vote, and we won't be subject to the backstop, so we can actually negotiate much more strongly. I can say I'm very, very much against an Article 50 extension. That would be a betrayal of the referendum results,
yes.
But it is much better than her deal.
OK, no, very, very interesting. And what would it mean in terms of money, do you think? I mean, her deal was a £39 billion package. Would it cost us more to stay in the European Union, or perhaps even less?
No. Supposing we had a long Article 50 extension, 21 months, we would then pay into the EU budget as a member state during that period.
Yep.
And we'd actually be paying the same amount as under Theresa May's deal, because that period would be her so-called implementation period, which, as I've said, wouldn't be implementing anything, it would just be turmoil-filled negotiation. But the difference is that under the deal, we're then liable for another big chunk of long-term money, which we would not be liable for under an Article 50 extension.
Okay.
So we're better financially.
OK, and so basically, if we have an extension and then a new Prime Minister who's somewhat more robust, could we press the reset button on the entire negotiation?
Yes, we could, which we couldn't do with her deal, because her deal locks us out from certain options, like it locks us out completely from a free trade agreement, a Canada-style free trade agreement. It would mean a very big disaster for this country. Basically, Theresa May would have cost the country 2 years of time, effort and turmoil and achieved absolutely nothing. But I'm afraid it is better to scrap her deal, even if we have to face a long Article 50 extension, than to take her deal.
Fascinating. Martin, thank you. Well, that was Martin Howe QC, who is a very well-known Eurosceptic, but actually making the argument that an extension is better than accepting her deal, her new treaty. Fascinating. And also making the point, this extraordinary behaviour by the Foreign Office representative in Brussels on Friday, preempting what Parliament may do and saying we're not leaving on the 29th of May. Since that moment, things have got much worse for the Prime Minister. She's on the verge of being ousted. And I did read in today's Sunday Times a piece by veteran commentator Adam Bolton that I thought was really, really interesting. You know, he said, Unless MPs can find a legally certain way to stop her, Mrs May could simply say, sorry, we haven't reached a firm alternative proposal, so we are just going to leave. She would be the toast of Brexiteers who now possess the soul of the Tory party. This is what Tusk and Juncker meant when they warned against a Brexit by accident. There was nothing about the punch-drunk Prime Minister who left her last EU summit early to suggest she wouldn't stumble into a no-deal Brexit to save herself. And I think they're very, very interesting words and some surprising voices now out there. I mean, today, David Davis, who at the second attempt did back the new treaty, but David Davis writing today in the Sunday Telegraph saying, actually, no deal is the best way to go. And what really surprised me was Sir Graham Brady, chairman of the 1922 committee, writing in the Sun on Sunday, time to settle this mess and get out now. A summit taking place at Chequers this afternoon, where they're all going to say the same thing to her. This is the only way, Prime Minister, you can save the Conservative Party. Could she surprise us all? Sian is a 16-year-old caller from Newham. Good morning.
Hi, Nigel.
Welcome to the show.
So, I believe the damage that a no-deal Brexit will do will be unheard of.
Why is that?
So, I mean, Nigel, you're in a very privileged position to say that, Brexit will do us well, and you're not stuck in a working-class family. You're not reliant on medications being imported from the European Union to get you by.
Okay.
Because I'm also with Brexit coming, so I take lots of medications a day. I have several medical conditions. I'm already having supply issues because of the uncertainty that's currently happening within Britain, and many suppliers from the EU aren't all that happy to supply to Britain at the moment.
Sian, I'm sorry, that is simply not true. The only supply problems that we've had from Europe have been the weather, of course. You know, last week, a week of gales meant that many of the ferries and many of the ships weren't sailing. Sian, I've got some good news for you. All right, I met last Thursday on Eurostar the guy that heads up the British Pharmaceutical Association. All right, and I said, well, what if, with your industry, what if a no-deal Brexit led to short-term disruptions? He said, we're already prepared. We've increased the stockpile that we already keep, and we're also preparing other routes than Dover. So, Sian, straight from the pharmaceutical industry, you are not going to have a problem with that.
I'm already having problems. That's what I'm trying to say.
Why?
Many companies aren't all that happy to supply to Britain at the moment because of the uncertainty that Brexit will bring. And while the BPA are making precautions and preparing, that doesn't mean that all suppliers from all across Europe, because there are millions of medications that come into Britain every month. There's a mass amount of medicational trade coming in from the EU to Britain. It's not going to be that easy and that seamless to bring in all of that trade so rapidly and so quickly into Britain without trade deal.
But Sian, most of our business is done not with the European Union. Most of our business is done with the rest of the world. And fascinatingly, you know, we import vast quantities of goods from China on World Trade Organization rules. Similarly, we have a big trade with America on World Trade Organization rules. And I think, frankly, what's happening are some appalling scare stories.
Trading as part of a trade bloc with the rest of the European Union.
Yeah.
That's how we've operated. To instantly go on one day, on the 29th of March, from trading in a trade bloc so easily, so seamlessly, by instantly, because, and without a plan, because Theresa May hasn't done all that well in planning.
Well, we'd agree on that.
Without a plan, without a deal, things aren't going to go very seamlessly, and things will be very chaotic, and it could lead to lots of issues.
Well, Sian,
including medicine shortages.
Medicine shortages aren't going to happen, and I'll reassure you with one point, Sian, which is that even Mark Carney, who has been the most vocal critic of Brexit before the referendum and since the referendum, and even Mark Carney, Sian, now says over 80% of companies are fully prepared for any disruption caused by a no-deal Brexit. Sian, who do you think should lead the country?
What about the other 20%? What are their medicinal companies? Are we willing to give up that 20%?
And Sian,
they could be supplying medicines for hundreds.
Sharp, we've got to go to a break. But let me ask you very quickly: who would you like to see? Who would you like to see leading our country right now?
Probably David Lammy.
David Lammy. Well, I tell you what, at 3:00 this afternoon, you can listen to David Lammy because he'll be in this studio broadcasting on LBC. Sean, thank you for your call. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is 11:17.
This is LBC.
Ian does the same things every day. He gets out of bed. He walks to the station. He shouts at the swans in the park. Swans! But today is different. Ian just won one of Paddy Power Games' daily jackpots. I've won! With an average jackpot of £10,000 to be won by 11 p.m. daily, you have a chance to win every day too. Hey, swans! Jackpots will vary from day to day. Must be awarded by 11 p.m. Available on selected games. T's and C's at paddypower.com. 18 plus begambleaware.org.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you the very best London has to offer? Yes? Then Greyhound Cars, one of South London's oldest and most progressive minicab companies, want to speak to you. Spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. With a very busy day circuit, we have high demand and are now offering great bonuses and mileage rates for the very best drivers. You could pay as low as 10% commission. Start today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
So much confusion. This deal or that deal. Why can't renewals be simple? It does sound like a bargain. What if you're being ripped off? Confused.com guaranteed to beat your renewal quote, helping you rise above the clamour of comparison sites. It's that easy. Beat your renewal quote guarantee, or you'll get the difference in an extra £20. Don't be confused. Be confused.com. Full T's and C's online. Single annual policies only.
I'm Nick Beresford. We are Enitor. We manufacture performance insoles that help people stay injury-free. We showed Usain Bolt and the technology. He loved it and wanted to help us and has really sort of kicked us into the global marketplace. At first, we probably tried to chase too many of those opportunities. That's where the Department for International Trade has been really helpful on strategy first. Where is it you want to go? Where does this product fit? And then let's have a roadmap over the next few years in order to go and do that. If we can, you can. Search exporting is great.
It's Super Weekend at Lidl with up to 50% off selected products. Get a bottle of Argentinian Malbec Mendoza just $4.29. British cold-pressed rapeseed oil only 99p. And deluxe RSPCA honey streaky bacon also 99p. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI and Scotland.
Many dentists refer their own patients onto Darwood and Tanner.
My name is Dr. Mark Kent. I'm a general dental practitioner practicing in a North London suburb. Darwood & Tanner have become my preferred referral practice. I feel that Dr. Andrew Darwood can provide the highest level of implant surgery that is available, together with giving my patients the option of alternative specialist treatments.
Download your information pack today. Search Darwood & Tanner. Your smile is our healthy obsession.
I have made a will, and no, we haven't talked about it openly. But it does need talking about. Trouble is, I'm up north and Mandy's down south, and when I see her, we tend to do family things and go out with the children. And then all of a sudden I'm going home again. I think, haven't talked about that. Next time. I don't know why she's not talking about it. Well,
it isn't easy talking to your family about money, but it is important. The M word from Lloyds Bank. It's good to talk about money.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Now, before the break, 16-year-old Sean was very, very concerned, talked about the number of medicines that he needs. And this is what Remainers have done. They've actually scared people with a series of stories that simply are not true, including our 16-year-old caller. Some more reassurance for you, if I can. Professor Russell Viner, the president of the Royal College of Paediatrics and Childcare, said that he is considerably reassured by all the government's preparations. We can go on from that. Jim on Facebook says, the medical suppliers don't want to lose their jobs, so even short-term disruption, which has been stockpiled to cater for, the flow of medicines will continue as these companies want to get their medicines to the markets that want them. But, you know, here we are. Craig says, I work for a pharmacy and we have no issues with ordering stocks from Europe. The child is just afraid, and that's sad to hear. And yes, there was a certain sense of fear, and that's why I kept that call going as long as I did. But that is the irresponsibility. Remainers saying the sky will fall in if we become an independent country, and on no level is any of this true. Now, is Mrs May going to surprise us all this week? Gosh, I hope I'm wrong, but I can't see it. But you never know. She's in more trouble today than she's ever been. It is the only way she can save herself, her reputation, and maybe even the Conservative Party. Big summit taking place at Chequers today. Russell is calling from Wokingham. Good morning, Russell.
Good morning. Well, firstly, can I just add to the point on the pharmaceutical?
Please.
On CNBC 4 weeks ago, the CEO of Roche was on there and was asked by Jeff Cutmore if there was any problems with supply. Roche being a massive pharmaceutical importer into the UK. He said at that stage, this is when the likes of Steve Barclay and Rob said there wouldn't be a problem, that there is no problem with supply of any drugs from his company. They're already prepared for an extended problem if one occurred, and he didn't foresee one. So this is, again, where people go on that march yesterday and they do not realise the facts. And the facts are everyone has been scared to death who are not informed, and they only cherry pick. Do they really want to be under the control of Tusk, Barnier and the remainder in terms of having a European army, centralised taxes and all the other baggage which will come from
some of them do,
Europe?
Russell, some of them do. The real EU nationalists on that march yesterday carrying their European Union flags, they do. But I suspect the majority of people on that march don't actually realise the European Union's true intentions.
No, I agree with you. In terms of May, going back to the point which you've been raising, and it was a very interesting conversation at 11 o'clock you had.
With Martin Howe, QC.
I think irrespective of trying to save a skim, she will not have a no deal. There's no way she'll do it. She's a Remainer through and through. She needs to go. Now, for someone like myself, who has got no party to vote for now, currently, I have no party to vote for. I have voted Tory historically in the past. I live half a mile from May's house, actually.
Right.
So obviously, the reality of it
Are you the neighbour from hell, Russell?
Yeah, not necessarily. I see her in Toyford Waitrose virtually every Sunday afternoon. Obviously, she's not going to be there today.
Yeah.
Now, the fact of it is, she needs to resign. If you had a work colleague, and I'm sure you have, who was going through a mental breakdown and has lost scope of everything they can do, and has lost direction and the inability to think, and the inability to actually make the correct decision, you take them out of their misery. We will be doing her a service. If she stood down and was replaced. Now, in an ideal world, you would have the likes of a Dominic Raab, or someone who represented the votes which were at least fairly split and more balanced. But based on what I saw this morning with Hammond again, catastrophe Hammond, and all the other aspects, Amber Rudd, etc., even Gove, who's I wouldn't trust. If I wouldn't give him my bank account details, because I couldn't trust him at all what he would do.
So who, Russell, who in the Cabinet would satisfy you?
There's no one in the Cabinet
No,
currently.
there isn't, is there?
There's no one in the Cabinet. Now, I can only see one resolution of this, and obviously it's not going to be good for the Tory party, but if, for instance, we had an extension, if, for instance, there was a European election, and hopefully the likes of the Brexit party would then show the true intentions of the people. The fact of it is, the Tory party, who are meeting this afternoon in the form of Boris, etc., need to quite clearly say, we are prepared to split the party. And even if that risked a Corbyn government, which I don't believe with his radical left views of Marxism, etc., would get in, we are now in a situation where I would rather have a clear option of what to vote for. Because if I voted for Tories now, whoever replaces May in the current cabinet would take us on the same course of action.
They would. So is that what Jacob and Boris are going to tell her this afternoon? You need to do this.
Well, I hope they have the balls to do it.
Yeah, well, so do I.
I don't, incidentally, I don't see either of those as the leader.
Right.
I don't disrespectful to Jacob, because unfortunately his quirky personality will not relate to a general election, general public. And Boris, unfortunately, although I believe he's done a lot of good stuff, again, he is now stained. So I think someone like Rob would be my choice.
All right, well, he's your... Russell, I've let you had a good go. Thank you very much indeed. I'm up to Leeds to speak to Carol. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, Nigel.
So, could Mrs May surprise us all, Carol?
I don't think that she's going to take us to a no deal.
Right.
But I think she's absolutely the right person for the job.
Do you?
I absolutely do, yes. I don't think that anybody could have got us closer to the Brexit date without anything actually happening, which nothing actually has, except for Theresa May. She's a stubborn woman. She's maintained her stance on her deal, and that has got us this close. I think now, hopefully, we'll leave by default.
But, Carol, hasn't she been stubbornly wrong?
Yes, she absolutely has, yeah. She's been completely wrong, which is why we've got so far in the in the Brexit process.
I see. I get the logic of it.
So I think because she's been so stubborn, people have voted her treaty out each time, and now with this close, we can almost touch it.
And yet, yes, I had a caller on Thursday. He said, I can smell it, I can taste it.
I feel the same.
And I get the point you're making. We can almost touch it, and we can get it if the Prime Minister holds firm this week.
That's right, and all she has to do is just wait, just hold everybody off, and we'll be out.
Will
because nobody is
will she do it, Carol?
Deal.
Will she do it?
Oh, probably not.
No,
I hope so.
So do I.
I hope she's as stubborn now as she has been all this way with her wrong treaty.
Yeah.
And we'll be out.
Yeah.
Because
Well, listen,
the
Carol.
date will come and go.
It's just not going to happen, I'm afraid. Thank you very much for your call. Yes, come on, Mrs May. Now is the time to play your ace card and honour the democratic Brexit vote of the British people to leave on the 29th of March on WTO rules. If not, ASAP. Yes, look, I know there are lots of you on the Brexit side think she ought to do this, and clearly there are many on the Remain side who don't want this to happen because they know once we've left, we'll never, ever rejoin. And certainly not rejoin, as Chris on Facebook says, a European Union that is not very successful at the moment, where things are not all roses and where major countries are going into recession, and where, in the European elections in May, you will see a European Parliament with more Eurosceptics from across Europe than we've ever seen before. Could she surprise us? Well, before we get back to that, we're going to talk about today's anniversary, because it was on the night of the 25th of March, 75 years ago from Stalag Luft 3, that the Great Escape was attempted. We'll talk about that in a moment, but for now, you're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 11:30.
There's growing speculation Theresa May could be forced to step aside as Prime Minister over her handling of Brexit. Reports this morning suggest 11 cabinet ministers are ready to back a coup. A man has died following a stabbing in northwest London. He was found injured in Pinner early this morning after a night in which 5 people were hurt, one critically, in a series of other attacks in the capital. Separately, 8 people have been arrested after a man was stabbed to death in Somerset. A cruise ship that got into difficulties off the coast of Norway is sailing into port after around half its passengers were rescued. The Viking Sky sent a mayday call yesterday after losing power in a severe storm. The weather forecast: dry with sunny spells in central and southern areas, showers and strong winds across Scotland, with rain spreading into Northern Ireland and Northern England later. A high of 13 Celsius.
This is LBC.
Get Productive is the new productivity podcast from Great Western Railway, helping you to maximise your downtime. With tips and tricks from CEOs across the UK, from what their average day looks like to what it really takes to be successful.
I have a lot of energy and I'm still get extremely inspired and excited by ideas.
Have a brilliant team around you, especially non-exec directors.
Have a listen now via the Global Player or wherever you get your podcasts.
Looking for your perfect kitchen? Visit roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
46 years ago, Swale Heating was born. We've installed thousands of boilers, and now the process is even easier. There's no need for a household survey. Just go to swaleheating.com. Answer a few questions, we'll recommend the best boiler, then install it at a time to suit you. Rely on us to keep you warm.
I want Poppy to play cricket for England.
I want Sam to stop screaming.
I want Joe to live a little.
I want Naomi to live a lot.
I want Becky to invent a cure for the common cold.
Whatever the future holds for your children, Vitality Life Insurance want to make it happy, healthy and secure. So when you take out our Wellness Optimizer, you'll get up to 40% off your life insurance premiums.
I want the twins to keep on being happy.
I just want whatever the twins are on.
Just search Vitality Life Insurance. Additional product, minimum monthly premiums and conditions apply.
Previously on Family Street.
I can't just forget what happened.
It was a stupid mistake.
I don't want to hear it.
But it needs to be said.
Oh, don't say it, Betty. I won't let you say it.
Purple Brick sold more houses more quickly than any other top 10 estate agent.
Save yourself from commisery at purplebricks.co.uk.
Independent sales data from 20CI for 12 months to April 2018, based on average time between instruction and agreement of sale. See purplebricks.co.uk for more details.
I know who designed Princess Di's wedding dress. I know who phoned home. I know how to do a silly walk. And I know which part of the room you should never put baby in. But I don't know my state pension.
Find out more about your state pension and how much it should be. Get to know your pension. Visit yourpension.gov.uk.
What would the neighbours say if they saw you looking like that?
Fencing ready for a refresh? Get to B&Q. We've a huge garden paint range at everyday low prices, including B&Q exclusive 12-litre Run Seal Fence Life One Coat for just £12. Now also available in charcoal grey. So you can do it when you B&Q it.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Back to Brexit in a moment, but as I said before the break, this is the 75th anniversary of the Great Escape from Stalag Luft 3 back in 1944. And joining me to talk through some of the history and the big event that's taking place in London today is Paul Beaver, Honorary Group Captain of Roger Bushell's 601 Squadron, author and historian. Paul, good morning. Good morning. Now, Roger Bushell, to those who don't know, he was the sort of inspiration, would that be the right way of putting it, behind the Great Escape?
Well, I think he was the driving force. I mean, he was known as Big X. He was the man who ran the X Committee, which was the way that they had of hiding from the Germans the fact that they were trying to escape. They had all sorts of different ways of trying to escape, but mainly it was, of course, digging 3 tunnels. Tom, Dick and Harry. I mean, how much more British can you get?
Quite. And I did see, Paul, with this anniversary, of course, of the Great Escape, there's lots of talk and lots of print articles about it. I did see an article in the Times yesterday, actually backed up by a Times leader column, that after the war, there was talk of Roger Bushell getting a George Cross, and that was turned down. And the Times leader yesterday suggesting that, belatedly, he was actually honoured for his role in all of this.
Yes, he should have been honoured, I think, at the time. And he did do an amazing amount. Roger Bushell was shot down very early in the war, and he just kept on escaping. I mean, he spent 7 months on the run in Czechoslovakia, hiding in Prague, and he may even have had involvement then with the Czech resistance. He was certainly well tied into MI9, which was an intelligence organisation run for escapers to help escapers, but also run for them. And it seems amazing now, but in this prison camp, they had a radio transmitter. They were passing back intelligence to the British about simple things like how was the bombing campaign affecting German morale, where were troops going from, and that sort of thing. It was an incredible enterprise that Roger was running in this camp.
Yeah. Now, 76 POWs actually got out of the 200 who'd intended to get out. And I did notice that in the obituaries yesterday, Jack Lyon, who was waiting his turn at number 89, has just died. And I also noticed that a couple of months ago, a fellow called Dick Churchill died, and he was the last of the 76. But just talk us through the 76 and what happened to them, please.
Yeah, so 76 people managed to get out and run, and they ran across open ground. The tunnel, although it was Harry was 348 feet long and 30 feet down, it actually didn't go quite far enough to get them into the woods, and they had to run over open space. And then they split up. They had various different ways of escaping. Because they were so ingenious, They had civilian uniforms, they had German uniforms, there were all sorts of ways. 3 people out of the 76 got away, 2 Norwegians and a Dutchman, which because I think says something about those national characteristics of those countries.
Yeah.
73 were captured, and Hitler apparently was red with rage the next morning and heard about this and immediately ordered hundreds and if not thousands of people to go searching for them, and it caused turmoil in central Germany and in Poland, what was called then the Generalgouvernement, which was the area of occupied Poland that Zargen the Count was in. And they had to step up the guards at ports. They took soldiers from the Eastern Front, soldiers from the D-Day preparations on the Atlantic Wall. But Hitler was so annoyed, he wanted to have them all shot. And eventually his generals persuaded him to only murder 50 of them. One of those who survived was Dick Churchill, because, of course, he shared the surname with Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister, and the Germans really didn't want to shoot one of his family. But they were quite happy to machine gun the others, including, sadly, Roger Bushell, formerly of 601 Squadron.
Which you are now the honorary group captain of, which is quite an honour, isn't it?
I'm delighted. I share that honour with several of my colleagues, and we're going to have at the event in Hammersmith Apollo tonight. There'll be several people in the audience from 601, I hope, cheering me on, because I'm going to be telling the history there with Dan Snow on stage.
And there are many cinemas across the UK will be carrying this event at the Hammersmith Apollo tonight. I hope it all goes really, really well, Paul, and I thank you very much for coming on and sharing some of the story of The Great Escape, because immortalised by that 1963 film. Paul, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Lovely. Well, of course, we all know the music, don't we? I mean, whether the film was wholly accurate, many of the veterans said it wasn't. Certainly not Steve McQueen on a motorbike, but we do all know the music, and I think you can smile a bit at the music, but maybe a little sombre reflection later on this evening that, you know, of the 76 who got out, 50 of them were murdered on Hitler's orders. Great story, hell of a story. My goodness me, we think we're living in a crisis. With Mrs May, with Brexit, I think those that went before us had some much bigger problems to deal with. That said, the Prime Minister is in a terrible mess. She is being laughed at on the world stage. You've got over half her cabinet now seem to think she should be ousted ASAP. Could she, in order to save her own skin, surprise all of us and go for a no-deal Brexit? And she's certainly got the right people today coming to Chequers. All the leading Brexiteers, plus Damien Green, who's a Remainer, but don't forget, is a close personal friend of hers and was her deputy as well. Interesting that he's going to be in that room with all of those people. Sean is a new caller from Birmingham. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I'm all right. So come on, Sean, tell us what's going to happen. Come on.
I would not be surprised if we had a no deal. It just wouldn't surprise me, because if you think about it this way, those people she's got in that room there, they are probably very good negotiators, and negotiators are very good salesmen. I would not be surprised if she was persuaded by all of them, even just a little bit persuaded, but I think they would have enough persuasive skills between them to let her see that no deal is not as bad as would be feared.
Yes, I mean, the problem is, of course, she's got people like Philip Hammond talking in her ear and Ollie Robbins talking in her ear. But yeah, I mean, on the one hand, they could persuade her it's not as bad as it's been made out, certainly. But, Sean, the thing that interests me is I think this is the only chance she's got to save her reputation.
I completely agree. Now, I must say it now, I lived in France for 3 years and I did my Erasmus in Spain, so my profile would be that I should want to remain. However, you've got to respect the democracy. You have to. I mean, I would, at the time I was in France, I didn't vote. I would have voted to remain, hand on heart, but now I would vote to leave, because it's like this. It's like when you're dating someone and then they just do something, like maybe they're rude to the waitress or something, and you go, oh, hang on a second. Like, I don't want to be associated with this. That's the way I look at the EU. It's like, it's been good, but the way they've treated us in negotiations, when you sorry, but when you anger people, when you piss them off, you see their true colours. And I think that's what everyone's beginning to see now with the EU.
Yes, I think that's true, Sean. And I think, that polling I read out, the Conres polling done for the Express on Friday, shows there are a lot of people, Sean, like you, those that were on the Remain side that are now on the Leave side. It's pretty clear.
I've not met a single reverse. I've not met a single Leave voter who would vote for Remain. Not a single one. I'm not seeing any on Twitter.
No, interesting.
I've heard it. Not a single one. Just not interested.
And what age are you, Sean?
I'm 31, Nigel.
31 now. OK, fine.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you very much indeed. And Sean there, who did an Erasmus programme, etc., and who used one naughty word that shouldn't be used, really, on Sunday mornings. Laura says, I don't know about you, I'm absolutely fed up with the doom and gloom that's been drip-fed through the media. I wish people would do their own research and make their own unbiased decisions. I knew the day I voted Leave, there'd be a battle ahead. Laura, most people don't do their own research because most people are busy. Most people they've got jobs to do and households to run and they get their news, a lot of it still through mainstream media, and that is where there has been an endless drip feed of total negativity. Peter is calling from Maida Vale. Peter, is she going to surprise us all?
Nigel, I'm not normally one for conspiracy theories, but she may have been in on this current stitch-up from the start. I've got 10 quick points, and I'll go through them, and you tell me what you think.
Well, I tell you what, I'll let you make 5. Choose the 5 important ones.
Well, that'll leave out the conclusion. But against all logic, the Conservatives set her up as the Prime Minister, a Remainer Prime Minister, all right? Okay. Above all other possible Brexiteers. She then surrounds herself with Remainers in key positions, which essentially they're still there.
Yes.
Lancaster House happens, presents a strategy. Most people are quite happy with it.
Yep.
Then it all goes a bit pear-shaped. Subtle U-turns, negotiating. Arch anti-federalist Ollie Robbins is put in to be our negotiator. All right. Then she signs off on this treaty before, of course, running it past Parliament, knowing that when it would be signed off, the EU would claim it's not reopenable or renegotiable, which, of course, it is. You send out Rees-Mogg and Geoffrey Cox there with a highlighter and some Tipp-Ex, and they can soon take out the things that we actually don't want in it.
Well, like all of it, really. But go on. Yeah.
Okay. So then it would fail in Parliament, both due to the backstop and the other inherent problems, which, of course, the media conveniently constantly ignore. So then, presenting changes, which the Attorney General, I have to say, Geoffrey Cox, for me, is, comes through this really, really as the only guy with any integrity. I mean, he's a Brexiteer, and due to what he said, it has sowed the seed of doubt in a lot of people's minds with regard to the backstop. But fair dues on him for actually saying that. But so it's not a watertight deal. So MV2 goes down, loses it, still considerable opposition. So then what happens? May makes a number 10 statement, deliberately inflaming MPs and making them less likely to vote for MV3, which, may not even be presented now.
Are you suggesting all this was planned 2 years ago?
Yep, and listen, the EU then help her kick into the long grass so she can step back after it all goes pear-shaped and say, well, they did it, it was not my fault. The ultimate self-sacrifice for her beliefs. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying I believe this, it's just a theory, but if you look at all the evidence, you look at all the points, the way the whole thing's moved, it's a bit weird, isn't it, the way the whole thing's actually happened?
Well, Peter, the whole thing's happened, and I don't think this was all mapped out 2 years ago. That's almost impossible. But what I do think happened between Lancaster House and Florence was the influence of Ollie Robbins and others persuaded her that a clean break was not the way to go. She's tried to satisfy both sides of the argument. In the end, most of the country can't stand her. Peter, thank you. Most of the country can't stand her, but if she went for a no-deal exit on Friday, half the country thinks she's fabulous. 50%'s better than about none, isn't it? You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it is 11:46.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Theresa May is currently at the mercy of a full-blown potential cabinet coup to replace her with an interim Prime Minister. Should she stay or should she go?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
I'm making a pledge in my will to cancer research to save more lives in the future.
People who leave money in wills, without that money, we wouldn't be able to do the research that we do. It's as simple as that.
There is every reason for us to be optimistic about the future when it comes to cancer research, because the field is moving so fast, and from where we were maybe 10 years ago, there are so many treatments available.
Join the supporters and researchers pledging to beat cancer with Cancer Research UK. Find out how you can make a pledge to leave a gift in your will at cruk.org/pledge. Together, we will beat cancer.
With our offers of the week, you get our solid hardwood quality for less. A lot less. But they're just until Sunday at Oak Furnitureland. There's a store near you.
Go there! Their unbiased information could save billions across the nation. Proudly independent, free and fair!
You up to date? I ain't talking fashion trends, sunshine. I'm talking about the latest software and app updates. Here's the thing. Hackers love it when you don't install them. They can use weaknesses in outdated software to attack your device. And if your identity gets nicked, any Tom, Dick or Harry can pretend to be you. So watch your back out there and keep your software and apps up to date. All right? Be cyber aware. Learn more at cyberaware.gov.uk.
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
If you're a frequent traveller in premium, business and first class, is your travel agent charging you too much? Switching to Bright Sun Travel's 24/7 tailor-made travel services means you could pay less on flights and hotels and enjoy free benefits like early and late checkout, room upgrades and hotel credits. Conditions apply. Visit brightsun.co.uk. Atoll protected.
Constipation relief has me singing with glee.
Strutting my stuff for the whole world to see.
Senecot Max, help me feel free.
Natural Senna.
Double strength
helped us back to normality.
It's how
wonderfully
regular life could be.
Senecot Max Strength is twice the strength of Senecot tablets. For short-term occasional use, always read the label.
AJ Bell U-Invest helps people like you invest online. Whether you're a newcomer looking to dip your toe in the water or a savvy saver ready to jump right in, we've got investment ideas for you. For low-cost SIPs and ISAs, open an account online today. And don't forget to use your tax-free ISA allowance by the 5th of April. Discover your inner investor at uinvest.co.uk. AJ Bell U-Invest does not provide advice. Capital at risk. Tax rules apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
One of the big moments that could come this week is when the Prime Minister's government puts before the House of Commons and Lords a statutory instrument that says we will. What it'll do, it'll end us leaving the European Union on the 29th of March at 11 p.m. If that happens, that actually will be the moment of betrayal, the moment when every single thing this Prime Minister told us will come to not be true. Because even without her withdrawal treaty, we still, under the law, should be leaving at 11 p.m. this week. I think she probably will move that statutory instrument, and we've been told already that the British ambassador in Brussels has written a letter saying that that is what we are going to do. I hope I'm wrong. I hope she surprises. But that will be a moment, I think, at which her credibility will be zero. Literally zero. You cannot tell the country 108 times we are leaving on March the 29th and then lay down a statutory instrument to do away with the law that says we should do it. Richard in Epsom feels much the same way. He said, I already don't trust most MPs, and sadly, I'm unlikely to trust them again in the future, regardless of the Brexit outcome. If Mrs May changes the law so that we don't leave, then I'm sure many people will no longer trust our government, whichever party is in power. Richard in Epsom makes that point. And Richard, you're right. You know, what is happening here is MPs and our government are willfully going against what we voted for, what they promised us, and what they voted for. Chris is a first-time caller from South Wales. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, I'm all right, but I'm hoping she surprises us this week, Chris, but I'm, to be honest, doubting that she will.
No, I don't think she will. I don't think she's brave enough. To quote Margaret Thatcher, I think she's frit.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's. She hasn't got the stones to do it. She needs to go. But who's going to take her place? There's nobody really in the cabinet that could do it. Michael Gove seems to have gone native. I'm expecting any time for him to announce that he's a new leader of CND or something, or worse, a Liberal Democrat.
He does seem to have changed some of his politics in the last few months, doesn't he?
It's astonishing. He gave the clearest, most compelling arguments for Brexit of anybody, including, I'm afraid to say, even of yourself, during the run up to the vote, and what's happened to him since? I just don't understand.
Well, perhaps he never really meant it, Chris.
Well, perhaps not, but he's in good company in that case. I mean, Boris, I think, is all mouth and trousers. I think he could, if he thought it would suit him better, suit his ambitions better, he could just as easily have been a Remainer as a Leaver.
Chris, are you saying that? Are you honestly suggesting? Chris, you honestly suggesting that Boris Johnson would put career advancement above principle?
Absolutely. I think you've only got to look at the Heathrow thing to see what happens. I
was teasing you.
Yeah. I mean, my favourite has always been Jacob Rees-Mogg for a long time, but even he seems to be vacillating a little bit. And I know he's trying to be a bit practical, but I think he needs to stand a bit firmer. It seems to me that the whole problem with this has been our approach from the beginning has been entirely apologetic. We've been approaching the negotiations like some kind of Uriah Heep.
Yes, Mr. Barnier. No, Mr. Barnier.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we need to sort of stop for a moment and think about who we are as a country. I mean, just a couple of things. In terms of landmass, we're about 75th, 76th in the world. In terms of population, we're in the mid-20s. And yet, we're the 5th largest economy in the world. We're the 2nd largest military power in NATO. We've got a permanent seat on the Security Council. We've got a long history of standing up to be counted. And yet we're approaching negotiations with Europe as though we're some kind of third world banana republic.
They don't believe in Britain, Chris. They haven't got the confidence. No, the people have got more confidence than our leaders. Chris, I thank you. Now, there's one other way that we could leave, folks, with a no-deal WTO exit, and that's not this Friday, but it's this. If we go on to the new deadline of the 12th of April, and Mrs May was to come back, or perhaps an interim leader, with a few ideas and a few proposals, it is just possible that Monsieur Macron and others say, do you know what? We've had enough of this. I know Robert Peston from ITV takes this view. We've had enough of this. And Manfred Weber, who's the head of the EPP, said, I don't want Farage back in the European Parliament. Well, let me just be very, very clear to the EU federalists. If I have to fight the European elections and come back, I won't just be fighting for Brexit. I'll be fighting to bring down the whole European Union, all right? So there's a good incentive for you to veto any extension of the United Kingdom beyond the 12th of April. And then we would leave. That's scenario 2 in which we could leave on WTO. And that itself is not impossible. They do, many of them over there. Look, they're busy. They're getting ready to build an aircraft carrier. They want an army, a navy, an air force. They want to become a global superpower, a United States of Europe. They don't want Brexit Britain in there messing the whole thing up. So there is a chance from that. But could Mrs May surprise us all this week? I doubt it. Maybe James from York will tell me that I've got it wrong. Good morning.
Morning, sir. How are you? Are you well?
I'm all right, yeah. What's going to happen then?
I think, Mrs May, she will definitely not surprise us. I mean, she is one hell of an actress. I've met some actresses over the years, but she is beyond parody. I just can't fathom how she's lasted. I think the EU will come up with something last minute.
Do you? Well, what would they come up with then? I mean, look, they've got us where they want us, really, haven't they?
Yeah, but a no-deal Brexit is really, really going to affect, German car manufacturers, all the people that have been listed over the last few years.
Yep.
So I think Mrs Merkel might come out and say, right, enough is enough. Let's just have a sensible free trade. I mean, maybe I'm kidding myself, maybe I'm wanting to drink champagne on Friday after work, but it's so near, isn't it?
As people say, we can almost touch it, we can almost smell it, we can almost taste it, and yet...
I know.
James, if the British negotiating strategy had been from the start that no deal is better than a bad deal, and rather than mouthing it to the electorate to get votes in the June 2017 general election, if we'd actually meant it, then we could have gone into this and come out with a trade agreement.
I agree.
What she's done is she wants to take us out of one political treaty with the European Union and sign us up to another one. It has been.
Well, she's a Remainer. She's a Remainer. It's been. All they've got to do is email Barnier, Juncker, and the rest of them saying we're leaving on the 29th. We're already in Geneva with the WTO. We're lining up trade deals around the world. And CC in BMW, Mercedes, all the different companies.
And then they panic.
And then switch your phone off and go on holiday. And when she comes back, they'll all be there.
James, I know. I can see it myself. Thank you. I've got time for one last quick caller. Sam Beep is a new caller from Maidenhead. Time is short, Sam Beep. Please make your point.
Hey, Nigel.
Good morning.
I just wanted to say I'm from Fraser Most constituency here, so I've known her over the years. I actually think she's doing a really good job.
Okay.
When we've got Parliament as it is, so split down the middle, whatever she does, she's not. There's always going to be someone that's not pleased with what she's doing.
Well, of course, but Sam Beep, and I'm sorry. I know it's your first time on, and we haven't got time, but 10 to 15 seconds. Will we leave the European Union on the 29th of March? Will May take us out on WTO terms with the legislation?
To be honest, I don't think she's got a choice, and I think she's going to surprise you.
Right.
And what I also think is, I also think that the EU, on a no deal, will be very quick back to the negotiating table.
They would.
As soon as there is a no deal.
They would. Sam Beep, thank you very much indeed. Endless delays, confusion, division. The Prime Minister did get one thing right in her speech, though. The country and industry are now so sick to the back teeth of all the shenanigans, especially now, as we seem to be further away from ever than anything definitive. It is a mess out there. Go on, Theresa May, surprise us. I'll be back tomorrow at 6. At 3 o'clock, it's David Lammy. But now, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, the protests by fundamentalist Muslims against LGBT rights have spread from a school in Birmingham to other parts of the country. Should the government make clear that the law does not support the fundamentalists' demands? Before that, in an absurd twist to the government's hostile environment policy, the Home Office has refused asylum to an ex-Muslim Iranian Christian convert by implying that he has nothing to fear from Iran's death sentence for apostates, continuing that it is new religion, Christianity, that is violent. They then cite Bible passages to prove it. Has anyone informed the Queen that her own